Okay. And I think we're live. Frames are not dropping. Awesome. Hello, everyone.
All
How's it
right.
going? Can you guys see us real quick, actually? Let me know if you can see us. I think we switched over. Okay, yeah, they can see us.
Yeah, they're saying what's up. We got
Okay.
this.
Cool. There's a little bit of an echo. That might be the room I'm in. If it's too bad, we'll fix it. But welcome everyone. Today we have our really awesome guest with us. We have Roneil Rumburg, who is co-founder, CEO of Audius. Audius doesn't need much of an overview at this point, but if Roneil, you just wanted to take a couple minutes, let everyone know who you are, what you do, and then just give us the overview of Audius, and then we'll kind of jump into everything.
Yeah, man, excited to be here. And yeah, so I think the echo is actually on my end. I need to mute my Twitch.
You do need to mute one of them.
Oh, there we go. All
I'm in a
right, yeah,
different
I need to
room, so
mute
I wasn't
one.
sure
All
if
right.
it's like me or not, but okay.
Yeah, no, that was my fault. Yeah, excited to be here. Audius is a digital streaming service that connects fans directly with artists and exclusive new music. That direct bit is really what we see the key differentiator here being between Audius and some of the more traditional digital content distribution tools that have preceded us. But yeah, I saw someone said in the chat just started using Audius. This thing is great. It's awesome to see. And like I think more broadly, I hope all of you like get a chance to check it out because it looks and feels like any normal Web 2 product, but behind the scenes couldn't be more different, right? Audius is fully decentralized. It runs on a network of node operators that are in the broader Audius community who host content, who host metadata, who have like indexing services that index that, and yeah, all that put together ends up leading to a user experience that looks and feels like any other kind of music player, but is owned and operated by the very community that makes it valuable, right? So that's what we're super excited about.
I love it. One of the most interesting things to me about Audius is the fact that a lot of users don't know that there's Web3 blockchain technology on the back end of this. It's something you can log into, and unless you're actually looking for it, you can go through most of the experience without realizing there's decentralized technology behind it. Do you want to talk about why that's such a big deal for user adoption and how this is kind of a revolutionary approach to what you're doing?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we would consider it revolutionary necessarily. We really just felt that, so my co-founder, Forrest and myself both come from a more traditional like product building background. And we are just like, we need to build something that anyone can use. That was just the goal, here. And, I think the benefit that's provided, right, is, I think the majority of Audius users like don't know there's any crypto there. They don't need to know there's any crypto there. You can sign up for an account, you can engage with content, you can upload content without ever touching a wallet or anything else. The client will actually like generate all that for you. The client, like the Audius client, is interacting with Solana and POA network, like in the process of that, because we're still in the midst of wrapping up the migration from POA to Solana. But the fact that like someone can just go start engaging directly with this stuff without having any prior knowledge is so cool, right? And I think that's led to today about 4.6 million people use Audius every month. We have about 100,000 artists that have uploaded stuff to it so far, and yeah, I mean, I don't think we would have managed to grow to that size with like requiring every user to install a Chrome extension and like do all of kind of the things that like all of us and all of you all listening probably too are like very crypto native people, right? But I think it's easy for us to forget that like your average user doesn't have the same tolerance for like hopping through all these hoops. So yeah, I think we rather than really revolutionary, we see ourselves as like kind of iterating on and pushing forward, the usability side of crypto product to the extent that we can. And trying to, both steal the best patterns that we're seeing other people employ for kind of user interaction with products, but also try to, invent a couple of our own as well. So, I think, managed to kind of co-opt and adapt tactics from many others, and then in a couple of key places push things forward in a way that led to what you see today.
Where you're at, yeah, and the 4.6 million is an incredibly impressive number. I know over the past 3 months, you've seen incredibly quick compounding growth month after month from users. How many users did you have at the start of the year?
I think crossing over January, we had we had just crossed a million around then, or they were at like 1.2, 1.3 million, something like that.
Wild.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Were there any specific factors that you can link back to being the catalyst for this extreme growth?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, a big part of what we try to do is understand our own product and understand our own growth, right? Which is, it's like a funny thing that, like early on we could point to specific things and be like, okay, like this change led to like this increase in engagement. Today it's quite difficult actually to, like we can do nothing for a week. Like there have been weeks where the dev team was like very focused on, not something that was user facing, like some engineering improvement, architecture improvement, whatever else. And growth will be just as consistent as like when we're like launching new things. So what's interesting actually, I think like with a social product, there's sort of a network effect that kicks in at a certain size where like new users are begetting more new users over and over and over again. I think, somewhere along the way, and it's hard to point to like some precise moment where we crossed over that threshold, but at some point, like Audius's sort of network effect began to kick in, and the product has kind of been growing itself since then, which is a cool thing, right? It's like it's very cool, and don't get me wrong, like we still spend a lot of time like listening to the community and building cool new things, right, to try to help people engage and whatnot. But like it's anyway, long story short, it's very hard to point to anything or any specific set of things as moving the needle there. Yeah. I do think the token launching was a catalyst for like a lot of the recent growth, but that's been since October or so. And that definitely did lead to kind of this inflection point in a lot of the key metrics. Outside of that specific one, we can see, of course, and anyone can go look at our public analytics in dashboard.audius.co and see like all of the things that I'm referencing here. Like there are new features launched, of course, that like when people are engaging with them, like that means there's net new engagement that wasn't happening before. It's I think it's just this like slow, steady burn of stuff, right? Like you just gotta keep giving users what they want and what they're looking for, and it's to some extent your job to try to like guess it at that and try it and then see if they like it or not, and if they don't, cut it out. If they do, like keep doubling down. But yeah, it's a fun game. It's like it's so funny to think about though, like we kind of, our team and the community more broadly built this thing that like no one really understands now, right? Like I don't know what drives our growth exactly, right? And I think most people don't, with the products that they build, and that's really funny.
Yeah, I think, realize product market fit when you can continue to not do a whole lot and you're seeing this growth month after month, or at least nothing noticeable in the front end. One thing that you guys have done recently, and I think it's been a big craze all around, is NFTs. And so I know Audius recently did an integration with NFTs native on the platform. Could we kind of dive into that briefly?
Totally.
And I'm going to try.
Yeah.
So comments. I see a lot of nonsense coming on. I'm going to filter through this, see if there's anything helpful. And if you guys have any questions for Roneil, drop them in here. and we will try our best to answer them in real time. Cannot talk about price, obviously, but anything about Audius. I did see some stuff actually about the App Store. Audius is available Google Play and the App Store, correct?
It is.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'd encourage you all to go sign up and check it out. Yeah, super easy to download and get started.
Perfect. We'll drop the link in here
Yeah,
so everyone can see it, but NFT stuff.
cool. Yeah, so on NFT stuff, so where I think the Audius community started to see sort of a interesting opportunity emerge was, there are a lot of great tools for issuing NFTs, for selling them to fans, running auctions, doing things like this. We really didn't see a great kind of place to showcase NFTs, right? To showcase folks' collections, and importantly for artists to showcase like the things that they've minted and shared with their community, right? So almost like, I think like, your equivalent of your portfolio or your, discography on Spotify, right? Like we felt that, the NFT artwork that artists were producing should live alongside of their content and everything else. So yeah, Audius launched a kind of NFT gallery feature, or we call it collectibles in our parlance. I think we believe these will go beyond just the kind of current notion of what is an NFT today. But yeah, so there's kind of there are tools basically to let you connect your various wallets in other like MetaMask or Phantom or whatever else it may be with your Audius profile, and like index all the NFTs that are there and show them in a nice UI. So and yeah, I think that's kind of like generally the things that we are most interested in doing. Like there's some really cool things that with like the scale of audience that a product like Audius has, that sort of give us, I think, like an opportunity to take a unique angle or unique lens on existing markets, right? But find ways to adapt them to a more mass market audience, right? Like where, only one person can buy your like super fine art NFT, but like all of your fan base could still view and enjoy them, right? And that was kind of the the way, I think the way that we sort of found to bridge this activity into our product in a way that was like sort of very like kind of meshed well with like a mass audience kind of a model, right? Which obviously is very different from the like, you're going to auction one NFT for like the highest price possible kind of a model, right? It's just different. It like different metrics drive all of these different approaches and whatnot. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think the gallery model is really interesting because it's like you can go through and you can view the artist's catalog that's uploaded to Audius, but it's like, hey, what else is this artist currently involved in, or what type of art are they interested in collecting? It gives you a more personal look into them as a person outside of just the music. I mean, being an artist is already an incredibly intimate profession, but then being able to experience that other side of them is a really cool idea, actually. Are there any particular artists that are really taking advantage of this feature yet on Audius?
Yeah, there are quite a few. RAC and Blau come to mind as to the. I mean, they're just so like crypto native as artists in general. They were like very quick to jump on it. But yeah, there's actually like a great set of kind of launch partner artists, like 10 or so that helped us trial the feature pre-launch and kind of helped us work out some bugs and stuff. So there are always bugs. And then yeah, I think in that first week live we had like 500 or 600 artists actually kind of onboard their whole NFT collection to Audius, which was really cool. And also important to note, so to get access to the collectibles feature as an artist, you actually have to stake some number of Audius tokens. So there were 400 plus folks that like went and did all that and got it set up, which I think we still need to improve the usability around that whole flow, but that was really cool to see. And I think Yeah, last we checked, I think it ran the gamut of like a few really big artists to all the way to, there were a lot of like bedroom producers and stuff that were like, oh, like I've been collecting NFTs, I want to show them somewhere. Like that's cool. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a gallery on your profile. How I didn't know that you had to stake to get access to that. Is there a minimal number of Audius that you have to stake in order to
Yeah,
get
so you
involved in
need
that
to
token?
achieve a silver badge, which is 100 audio, basically.
Okay.
So you have to have 100 audio tokens, kind of in your balance to be able to access it. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I think leading into that, this is another good question. I was actually talking to a friend of mine the other day about this, but the tier system in Audius.
Mm-hmm.
Can we kind of do a quick breakdown of how that works and the actual functionality of that within the platform?
Totally. Yeah. So what Austin's referencing here is there are 4 tiers of kind of Audius feature access as we talk about them. So there's bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. So these are kind of achieved at different levels of token holding, of Audius token holding. So bronze is 10, silver is 100, gold is 1,000, platinum is 100,000. So like different kind of features are ascribed to each badge level. There's also like you on your Audius profile, you get that little badge next to your name if you have one of those levels. So yeah, it's kind of what do you call it? It's like it's a great way to sort of kind of level sort of the access to various things that are consuming resources at the network level, right? That's crypto economically why this exists, right? Is like there are some sort of features that require like broader network resources to be consumed to kind of access them, and for that reason, like limiting access to folks who are like actively engaging with the token on the network. I think the community felt made sense, but yeah, it's been quite surprising, cool. I don't know what to describe it with. To see that so like someone went and got like a platinum badge set up that's like 100,000 tokens, right? Like we kind of put that there as like we figured it would just be like a flex, like I don't know, maybe someone would set it up someday or something, but like also you can achieve a badge through staked Audius tokens, which is key to say. So like it's not just holding tokens in your balance, it's actually like staking them. So there are some folks with very large, token holdings that have staked, hundreds of thousands or millions of tokens. Yeah, that was how the first platinum badge got unlocked, and I think there are a few more now. But like, it's it's just crazy to think someone has like 100,000 of these tokens because they want to get that little thing next to their name. The only other there is a secret feature that platinum unlocks as well. So if any of you want to go achieve a platinum badge, you can find out for yourself, but it is still a well-kept secret.
I love it. We can't tell you what it is, but if you really want to know, depending on how curious you are, just go and stake 100,000 Audius. It's cool to see because I'd imagine that a lot of these token holders aren't artists themselves. And I think before we dive into this, there's been actually several really good questions, so we'll cover those in a moment.
Cool.
But it's cool to see, and I'd imagine, like I was just saying, that a lot of these token holders are artists. So it's awesome to see that they're able to invest in themselves through this token, and it kind of empowers them, and that's the full circle experience here with Audius, is that it allows them to monetize in several different ways and invest in their platform or invest in their future through the platform with these tokens.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, like and giving them the opportunity to earn those tokens too, right, was always the key of the project. Like by contributing content, by making Audius more valuable, the network actually turns around and like distributes ownership of itself to you, the creator, contributing that value, right? And that's a really powerful kind of flip in incentives that I think more broadly social products in in crypto we're going to see, and especially on Solana too, when you think about like what very, very cheap to basically free transactions unlocks in terms of kind of, like it's possible to build all these awesome social features that actually settle on chain. Whereas, like, obviously that, you can't have someone pay $50 of like gas every time, you like favorite a track or do something like that, right? Yeah, I think I'm very excited for, like, I think the promise of Web3 more broadly and like user owned and operated networks to be able to be realized by these tools is when a network can basically just, kind of like pay its users, its early adopters, to help make it successful and big, right? I mean, how does that compare to like a traditional social product, right? Like, why would you use any product that's like not paying you to use it, right? At a certain point.
Yep.
So I think that like incentive structure, I mean, it's just such a powerful way to like, siphon or suck usage away from an existing product when you can go and say, hey, like, this product will help you, let you own part of it in exchange for you doing what you're already doing. Like, and in our case, that's SoundCloud, right, is the thing we always point people to, right, and say, hey, like, you're giving away your content to SoundCloud, and like SoundCloud's not paying you anything for it, and it's not letting you monetize it. Try a product that lets you build a relationship with your fans, and like, engage with them, monetize them in any way you see fit, and it'll actually like pay you for doing that as an early adopter, right? I think that's a really powerful thing. It creates this kind of like, this almost FOMO, or I don't know what the right way to describe it is, but people thinking like, hey, if I'm early in this new place, I can get to control more of it, own more of it. But then everyone feels that way and comes in, and it almost like self-fulfills itself as a result, right? Which is kind of neat.
Yeah, it's a community growth strategy, but it's the way to reward those early adopters that took a chance and a risk on something before others did.
Mm-hmm.
I want to cover a few of the things here, and then I might put you on the spot after some of these questions. But when someone asked when can they upload multiple tracks at the same time to Audius?
Well, great question. I love questions like this because you already can, actually. So if you go to the upload flow, you can basically click to either upload an album or a playlist at once. You can actually like in batch put in and annotate all the tracks, and then they'll get uploaded. Yeah. You can already, if you'd like to. I believe it also allows you to upload multiple tracks without tying them to a playlist or an album. Although I can't recall specifically if that's the case. I haven't looked at this flow in a little while, but
you're not dropping your
mixtape
mixtape on Audius every week. Don't.
Oh man, I wish. I do have a like, quiet account that's I haven't had the courage yet to associate with myself.
That's what
we'll
you get if you get Diamond, is you get access to Roneil's unreleased mixtapes specifically on Audius.
Oh man, I don't know. I feel like I need to pay you to want to listen to my unreleased mixtapes. I don't think anyone should be paying to listen to that. But
it's the equivalent of, what was it? It was the Martin Scorsese or whatever his name was with the Wu-Tang album. That guy that managed one copy. And it was like a couple
Martin Shkreli.
Shkreli, yes.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent to that. You stake $1 million in Audius and you get access to some never before heard music.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that answered your question. It was who PK Razum about uploading multiple tracks. So there you go. There's another one that I'm assuming you get all the time that was around monetization, compensation, or monetization. Where was it? It was comparing Audius to Spotify. Oh, how is the artist revenue compared to Spotify? I know it's very different models, but I'm assuming this is something that y'all get asked all the time.
Oh yeah, totally. So the models are quite different. So in Spotify, just for everyone's context, so you understand kind of how that works. You give your content to a distributor who uploads it into Spotify for you. Spotify on a quarterly basis basically counts up all the plays that happen, and then they make a payment out to what's called a rights society. So there are these not-for-profit organizations in most countries, and at least speaking from the U.S. and like Western Europe kind of perspective, which are the ones that I understand the most. There are these rights societies that collect revenue on behalf of artists, so they get the money, then they pay it to the distributor, who then pays it back to the artist. Now, if you have a label that you distribute with, put the label in between the distributor. So artist gives content to label, who gives it to distributor, who gives it to Spotify, who gives it to Rights Society, who gives it to distributor, who gives it to label, who gives it to the artist. So what that ends up meaning is, the way that Spotify works, unfortunately, actually, depending on how you distribute the content, it gets paid a different rate. So if you distribute via label, you'll actually get paid like a 7 to 10 times higher rate per stream than if you distribute independently. Now, a lot of folks ask, like, why is that? It's because the labels negotiated a better deal than like an independent person can. And that's part of the reason Audius exists, right? Like, it should not be a play should be a play, right? But I think we kind of, tried to think about monetization a little bit differently with the design of Audius and said, why is it that why is there one size that fits all for streaming monetization? Why not give artists flexibility and power to decide how they want to price, right? Like what Austin mentioned about there was this Wu-Tang Clan album where they produced only one copy of the album and auctioned it off to, now it has this famous lore because this guy Martin Shkreli bought it. He's now in jail. Federal marshals seized all of his assets, including this Wu-Tang album. I think at some point, or maybe they did already, they're going to auction this album like from the federal marshals, and all of that lore like kind of makes this collectible like more valuable, which is kind of neat, right? Because it's like, all right, this like crazy pharma bro bought it and then went to jail, and then the government took it from him, and then now they're gonna sell it again. Like, anyway, why can't a platform let an artist do something like that with their fans, right? And so all this leads into, how does Audius think about monetization? We give artists the power to gate access to their content based on any input they want. So that input could be, you paid $1 to listen to it, or you paid like a cent to listen to it. That input could also be like, do you own one of my NFTs as an artist? It could be there's a certain artist who unfortunately I can't share the name of here, who wanted to have a song playable only at a certain altitude so that you could only listen to the track if you were in a plane. Now, I don't know what yeah, right. Is a very cool idea. I don't know how you get some oracle to report, the altitude that someone is at, or do so in a trustless way. Actually, the way we kind of the best way we had come up with for it was like to look at the ISP of the IP address making the request to listen, and if you can get it, Panasonic, and there are a few other ISPs that basically serve those like satellite airplane internet connections, like maybe you could like gate it that way. Anyway, why should that not be something the artist has the control over, right? Like, now I can't say anyone is gonna go get in a plane to like listen to your music, right? But I'm also not gonna sit here and say you shouldn't be able to do that, right? Yeah. I think that's like the coolest thing about how this is approached, is when artists own their relationship with their fans, and they can monetize it in any way they see fit. We know of artists kind of working on and wanting to engage on everything from like fan club sort of tooling, so they can arrange fans around them in Audius in some like paid manner to get access to exclusive content, to artists wanting to like charge $100 every time someone listens to their ultra set or something after they play the show, and knowingly limiting their audience with that price point, but knowing also that the people who are willing to pay that and come and listen are like really gonna thoughtfully listen to that and like engage with it in a way that like they wouldn't they probably wouldn't engage with just the typical like free track, right? One of the things artists complain about so much is they feel like Spotify has cheapened their music, right? Because Spotify is this sort of like jukebox of all the world's content that you can find for forever. So artists are like selecting not to release a lot of things there because they feel like it'll get commodified and cheapened in the process, which it is, right? Spotify like intentionally kind of commodifies music, which there's nothing inherently wrong with that, other than that it's restrictive to say that that's the only way that we should be able to monetize music, right? And Audius exists to create more flexibility and optionality in that.
There's been some really good questions, so we'll address that. It seems like there's a lot of people that are actually uploading music to the platform that are in here asking questions.
It's amazing.
So we'll be able to hit some of this in real time. But what music streaming platform currently pays the most? Wasn't it Tidal for the longest time by like a pretty large margin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So on a per stream rate, Tidal paid the most by like a good margin for a while. I think actually it's still true today, although they don't quite have the same level of usage as they once did, especially because they had quite a lot of exclusive content at a certain time, right? And there were actually some really cool, innovative things I think they did too, like this idea of the evolving album, right? Like the song that gets better and better over time. You can come back and listen to the same album a month later, and it'll like maybe be a little bit different, right? I think that was like a really cool idea, and I'm kind of bummed that that hasn't been developed more broadly, but yeah, so per stream rates range from I think a little over a cent on Tidal, if I recall correctly. Although I need to don't quote me on that. I need to go check. To a very small fraction of a cent in the case of Spotify, right? The per stream rate on Spotify is like less than half the Tidal rate. YouTube actually surprisingly monetizes quite well for artists too. It's because video CPCs, like the ad sort of royalty revenue rates for video ads, are much higher than they are for other forms of media. And like a paid Spotify subscriber actually, I think, leads to less revenue for the artists they listen to than someone just watching a video ad on YouTube before they see the track, which is like pretty interesting. So yeah, it's the rates are kind of all over the place. I think across the board, we feel that they're too low, for obvious reason, right? And I think that's what happens when you try to make one size fits all streaming, right? I think for the majority of artists today, they see streaming as a loss leader and a source of marketing for the ways that they actually monetize, which are merch and touring. So like those are the two revenue streams that are kind of the majority of revenue for a given artist. And it doesn't have to be that way. 2/3 of revenue generated by the music industry more broadly is recorded music related. Just like so little of that is making it to the artist that, like, at the end of all of that, artists are earning like a single digit percentage of recorded music revenue. And from the broader music industry, artists only earn 12% of the total. So like
12%.
when you add up like touring, merch, all the Spotify revenue, all the radio playing revenue, everything else, artists earn 12% of that, which is like insane. It's just completely insane to think about. Yeah.
There's just so many people in between that are taking a piece of the pie that just by the time it gets down to the person who actually made the music, they see 12%.
Yeah.
That's fucking That's
Yeah.
nuts.
I mean, yeah, when you think about when I described that sequence, like there are like 10 steps to an artist getting paid, right? And like each of those steps, there's breakage, there's delay, there's things go missing. There was this Music Modernization Act legislation passed in the U.S. like a year or two ago that actually allowed the performance rights societies to claim as revenue a very significant amount of money that they just couldn't figure out where to pay. There was like, money that had been paid to them. It was like $1.8 billion by the time this act was passed. It was just literally like, and what incentive do they have to try hard to figure it out? The problem is the artists don't even know that there's money waiting for them, right? So like, the Right Society just sits on this pile of money and earns interest off of it, and then they actually got the ability to claim it as revenue. Finally, through that legislation that was heavily lobbied for by no surprise who, right? The very folks that are able to claim it as revenue. No, actually the rights societies themselves. The labels didn't benefit from that one. The labels did benefit from the Music Modernization Act more broadly, but they don't benefit from the rights society being able to claim it. It's just like, yeah, it's funny. There's no, I mean, where's the voice in the artist in all of that, right? I think it's this, when you think about like unionization more broadly in like traditional workforces and like what that leads to, artists have never been able to collectively organize in a way that they could actually like, get treated better. But the labels are collectively organized in a way that lets them negotiate these better rates, right? So it's almost like when unionization is sort of works in the opposite way, where it allows big institutions to get better deals than like the independent individuals. It's quite interesting, right? You'd think of unions benefiting the worker, but in this case, it's actually like, yeah, I can talk about this forever.
Well, that's why
it's a very interesting.
You're passionate about it, dude, and that's why people love this platform. It's just like the people at the top actually building out the product care. I'm sure you're seeing this. There's a ton of really good questions that are popping in now. I think we filtered out.
Yeah, I've been kind of tracking them along.
But one of them was being able to name your own genre. So a couple of people were saying they would love more functionality and options when uploading a song and picking a genre. I don't know if you have any opinions or thoughts on that.
Yeah, so this is a really good question. We thought a lot about this.
You said that too, so thank you, man.
What was that? Sorry, who said?
I was just saying it was Buffo on the beat was the one that asked.
Oh, Buffo. Okay. Yeah. So we thought a lot about this sort of user experience, and it's a balance, right? So like when this question first began was there's a community called Jersey Club that took a huge liking to Audius in its very earliest days. It's a super cool community. I'd encourage you to check out their music on Audius and elsewhere. But Rel is like one of the bigger artists from that, RELL, and there are a few others. So they, that community got super excited. They pinged our Twitter and were like, oh, hey, like, can we have a Jersey Club genre, right? We didn't think anything of it. We were like, yeah, sure, like why not, right? Adding that opened up this floodgate of folks basically requesting like lots and lots and lots of different genres, and that prompted this broader kind of thinking and some discussions with within the community about like how would it make sense to kind of like not have this like run completely amok, but like give people freedom around. The problem is the thing we could never figure out was like, there are genres that you can like search by and slice and dice with in trending and elsewhere. And if there are like thousands and thousands and thousands of those, it just would become like the content would get so fragmented. Like, because is something electronic dance music, or is it dance music, or is it electronic music? And those could be three different like string tokens, but they effectively, I mean, okay, I don't want to offend anyone by saying they're all the same thing, but like I think anyone can probably say that those three are like, probably kind of the same thing, right? And
Yeah.
so anyway, like, where we ended up coming to, there's actually this tag functionality in Audius. So you can add as many tags as you want to a track. You can come up with whatever tag you want, and then you can search based on those tags and sort of like see what happens. Whereas a genre is something that's like there can only be one genre for a track. Which is why the categories of genres need to be mutually exclusive, right? But I think there's of course the understanding that like the ontology of genres is never going to encompass every kind of possible subgenre of music, right? It's an imperfect solution, but I think it's the one that like the community kind of ended up getting behind. I think when folks realized like kind of this is like a more complex thing when you pick it apart, right? But the tag feature did come out of that, and I think has ended up mitigating a lot of that concern. So, in retrospect, I think a community like Jersey Club probably should have been like a tag, not a genre. But it is, they get that cred, right? They were like the first, bigger like music making community to really latch on to Audius. So I'm glad they have that now, right? They love the fact that like this platform recognizes their community in a very real way, and I think that is the thing that I almost we've even debated just getting rid of the genre entirely because it is mutually exclusive and limiting, right? Maybe you could just reflect that in tags, so someone could tag their content with like 5 different tags, right?
Doesn't
And
genre
then
still
it's
keep
not
like
mutually
the
exclusive.
general organization though for like I don't know what the right word would be for like querying purposes, I guess, and then you can use tags to like customize everything a little bit more if your specific option isn't in
Yeah,
genre. So it's the best of
that's
both.
exactly right. Like trending, for example, right? If tags would segment, like a freeform tags would segment the track base on Audius. I mean, there are 400,000 tracks here, right? It's like not that trivial to,
Yeah.
go find like a, you can't search like electronic the word and get like electronic music. It won't, you need like more precise ways to like query things to your point. And I think that is to some extent what the genre provides, but it's really like the programmatic product derived querying that helps, right? So there's playlists for like what are the top tracks in X, Y, and Z genre that are just automatically generated by the system, for example, right? You couldn't really do that with something like tags. So anyway, yeah, it's a really interesting kind of issue, and one that like has a lot of contention within our community, and rightfully so, because I mean, people are very thoughtful about the buckets they want to put their art into, right? And I think they should be, right? Like, because you are bucketing yourself by picking a genre. So anyway, I mean, I get where it comes from, right? And it's I think something that still requires more work.
And I just want to point out like how cool this is. There's tons of artists in here, but like, what other platform can you jump on Twitch and like ask questions directly to the co-founder? It's just like things like this are really cool, and so I again really appreciate you taking the time, Roneil, and I'm assuming all of the artists in here are really grateful for that as well. There's tons of good questions in here now. I think someone asked, when I upload a track, how can I associate it to my already created playlist? Currently, I'm uploading the track separately and then go to the playlist and add the track to it individually.
This is a great question. So you can upload tracks to a playlist if the playlist is brand new. Our upload flow right now does not support at upload time attaching something to a playlist. This has been a very frequently requested feature from a lot of folks in the community. So I think someone is going to work on it. Hopefully soon. I think it's just such a like obvious thing, right? That should be there, but like no one thought of it until now. Like people are wanting to use that. So Yeah, I'll put it like coming soon TM, right? As we say about everything. And if any of you out there wanna work on that, please feel free to. Everything in Audius is open source. If you feel strongly that should exist right now, like go build it, and we would love to get that out to the world. It's just sort of a matter of prioritization and stuff from like our specific team's work. But I do think, we do plan to get to it eventually, but someone else can do it first. We've seen that with a lot of other features, right? Like dark mode and a few others. So,
oh man, dark mode is critical. I do everything in dark mode.
Yeah, so we didn't make
default.
the first version of that. That was just people for so long had been like, we want dark mode, and you just hadn't gotten around to it. So someone finally just made like a custom CSS sheet and was like, okay, this is dark mode. Like, and there's a Chrome extension that lets you like inject custom CSS into websites. So like if you install that Chrome extension, then install this guy's style sheet, you could get dark mode. Yeah. And then that was finally, you're like, okay, like, it's time. It's like time to get this into the core release so people aren't having to jump through like 5 hoops to get dark mode. But it's funny. I guess it's amusing to some extent, like how much people care about small things like that, but I think it's important and even better, like giving people the power that care about dark mode to like go make dark mode if you want to, right? Like if you care about that, like you can go do it. Like yeah,
someone actually just commented about that and said, I love the fact that you guys have a public API, which makes the platform accessible to developers through current documentation, though current documentation is limited to read only. Anywhere when documentation will be updated as showcase post request to an Audius profile. I don't quite understand what that's asking, but it seems like you do.
Yeah, I think I get it. So the currently documented API is read only. Yes. So you can query tracks, you can play tracks, you can do that, but you can't like sort of upload tracks or do things like that. So there are 3 or 4 third-party products that have integrated the right side of the Audius API. It's another one of those cases of like the project team, like myself and our early folks that are working on Audius haven't had a chance to actually go through documenting and cleaning up the interaction patterns for like the right side of things. So there's actually a case like, if you're interested in building something around that, feel free to reach out to our team. We can help you kind of get pointed in the right direction. And more broadly, I think actually we want to look to the, feedback of folks like you and the early adopters of that API. There's a product called Stereo Load that lets you copy content from like your SoundCloud over to Audius, and there are a few other things like that of course to make that work had to consume the right side of Audius, which obviously does exist because everything's open source. Anything that the Audius.co client consumes, you can also consume, but it just might not be documented as well. So another soon TM, but feel free to ping us as well, and we can help you. We can help you get squared away if there's a specific thing you're working on there.
I love it, man. And I know we're coming close to the hour. I want to be super respectful of your time. So I was planning on asking you about advice for hackathon projects, but it seems like most of the people in here are artists. So like right now, who are your 3 favorite artists on Audius? And are we allowed to to endorse publicly? And before we jump into
that's such a tough question.
I know.
That is such a tough question. So I always use this opportunity at least to try to highlight some really awesome up and coming folks in our community. So if I, hopefully at least, one of these 3 folks, no one has, or, for any of you listening, you haven't heard of at least one of these 3. Austin, I know you know Camafly. I love him. He's like my, he's just he's been both an amazing community member, but like, putting aside that like he as an individual is a fantastic person, like his content is amazing. And that is, the more important thing. I think, people's art should kind of stand on its own, and his certainly does. So I would encourage you all to go check that out. Another one that comes to mind is My World. His name is MAI World. Incredible producer and singer, rapper. He kind of like, his work is all like fully produced by himself, and it's fantastic. I mean, it sounds like professionally mastered work that you would hear from like a major, music studio or record label, right? It's just super impressive, and it's great music too. So point you all to both of those, and encourage you to check them out. I also want to highlight, rather than highlighting a third person, I'll highlight a feature that helps you surface really cool underground music in Audius. There's this section of trending called underground trending. So basically from creators who aren't verified, who don't have like the, check mark or whatever. And also there's some other qualifications. I think they're like kind of, being below a certain like, following threshold and things like this. But it's kind of like a trending leaderboard chart for specifically folks, in that kind of, in that more up and coming category. So would encourage you all to go spend some time there too. There's a lot of cool stuff on like the core trending, but I think the power of Audius is much more in its ability to give like new artists, new creators, bedroom DJs a place to actually get discovered, because it's just not like there's no other platform today that like actually does, surfaces stuff from people that like you may not have heard before, right? Like Spotify is great for, if you want to go listen to Ariana Grande, like sure, search her name and go listen to it, but like you're not going to find things through their core features that like you haven't really heard before, right? So I think that, that's the thing that like I love. It's always cool to see big artists get excited and get involved too. It's definitely surreal when Diplo and a few others signed up to Audius, who like I mean there's so many like RAC and Blau, like there are all these folks that like I had followed forever and ever. To see them use a thing that I had played a small part in building was really cool. But I think the underground trending is the place to be. That's where the next like White Iverson or song like that is going to come from, because that doesn't happen on SoundCloud anymore.
I love it. I was going to drop the spelling, but I don't want to butcher it. Do you mind if you just take like 10 seconds and drop all the links to those artist profiles that you mentioned? You mentioned Camoufly and My World. I think for anyone who's not familiar, if you're an artist on Audius, what Roneil was referring to is I actually worked directly with Camoufly. We found him on Audius, and we were looking for someone to make a custom beat for the Salon podcast. And we kind of just reached out to him, and we ended up working together, and it was really cool. And so it's kind of like very serendipitous encounters can happen on platforms like this that don't really happen on other places anymore. And so it was really cool to be able to work with him, and he was awesome. So yeah, shout out to Camoufly. So that was awesome. That was a really good rundown of everything. I think for everyone who has, because there's a ton of feature requests here that we weren't really able to get to. Roneil loves when you tag him on Twitter with feature requests. So make sure you do that. If you search for Neil, he won't be hard to find, or just look at the Solana Twitter account. We've recently tagged him.
Yeah, please do. We're always all listening. Audius Project is the Audius Twitter, so that's also, feel free to tag that if you ever have things you want to surface to our team. And come hang out in Discord wherever. We're all bouncing around. We're also Of course, like, been hanging out a lot in the Solana community, so feel free to find us at any, Solana related things too.
Amazing. Do you have any last words for everyone that's watching? This is also going to be recorded, so this will go up on the Solana YouTube, and this will also be auto replayed on the top of our Twitch. So anything that
Amazing.
anyone currently watching or that might be watching, any advice, suggestions, obviously sign up for an Audius account and upload your music there because everywhere else sucks now. But aside from that, what do you got?
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was gonna plug. Go sign up for Audius, make an account. Crypto doesn't have to be scary. Like the user experience thing. This is always what we and our team like harp on so much, because it's just like, I think there's so much potential for really amazing things to get built, kind of with these decentralized tools and Rails. And Solana is like a big part of unlocking that, right? Like, you now have free, well, not free, but very cheap transactions and the ability to have instant confirmation. But yeah, more broadly, like, yeah, I'm just excited to see more kind of like things that are actually helping like mainstream normal people exist in crypto. And yeah, see more of that. I also see a plug in the chat about merch. There actually is a merch store potentially maybe coming out soon. You didn't hear it from me, but that's my alpha leak for the day. Keep an eye out. Keep
Amazing.
An eye out.
Awesome. Yeah, there you go. And I think that's it. Thanks everyone for hanging with us, and thank you, Roneil, for taking an hour to talk to myself.
Oh, anytime. I mean, thank you all so much for having me, and thank you all for attending. This was fun. You gotta go choose somewhere to raid now with everyone listening.
Yeah, for real.
Is there any other crypto Twitch happening that we can bring you all to?
I don't know.
I have
this
no
software
idea.
uses all of my CPU and my mobile setup, and so I can barely do anything else.
Oh, your OBS setup. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. No raid party today. No raid party today.
Next time, we'll bring you back on for sure. But yeah, I appreciate you're hanging out with us, and have a good one, Roneil.
All right. Anytime.
Peace
See
out.
y'all.